Good morning again. If you would kindly take your seats, we're starting the second half of the morning. We're going to have, so you can see to my right, Scarlett Fu from Bloomberg TV. Thank you, Scarlett, for doing this. As you know, for many of you, she's a very popular face, and we're very honored of her moderating a not easy Italy, but growing and optimistic, and proud we stand. Now we're going to have two videos, one after the other, and then we'll start the panel. The first video will be by the editor-in-chief of the Italian top daily newspaper, Il Sole 24 Ore, who will have, I think, a great announcement. As you know, we are a country that tends not to communicate in English to the rest of the world, and this is an euphemism. So enjoy the rest of the morning, and if we can start with two videos. And thank you, Scarlett. Have a great.
Chi di voi sa che la prima società?
How many of you know that the number one company in the U.S. in the field of clean, renewable energy is an Italian company called Enel? Or that the world's top provider of electrical grid and distribution networks is another Italian company called Terna? We all know about Italian excellence in design, fashion, food, and cuisine. Italy is a confirmed leader in these fields. But Italy is also a frontrunner in mechanics, in precision mechanics, mechanical engineering, machine tools, and the automotive industry, including advanced high-speed trains. The country boasts outstanding research in specialty chemicals and biomedical engineering. You will find the daily story of this dynamic economy and of our country's politics in Italy Europe 24. We will tell it as it is, with impartiality.
Questa economia e questa politica, perché il mondo deve sapere.
Because the world needs to know precisely what Italy is, and Il Sole 24 Ore has the know-how and ability to do just that.
E le conoscenze per raccontarvela per quello che è. Abbiamo voluto fare anche una cosa in più.
But we decided to go the extra mile, no longer just Italy 24, but Italy Europe 24, featuring a daily outlook on the whole continent. We want to explain why the United States of Europe is not yet a finished project, and inform you about all the chronic challenges confronting the southern European countries. But we also want to remind the world that the European treaties do not allow member countries to have monthly surpluses, such as the ones that Germany still manages to achieve on a regular basis. We want to tell you about the dream of the United States of Europe and the dream of a different Europe.
E il sogno di un'altra Europa.
Small and medium-sized businesses form the engine of the Italian economy and account for over 99% of our manufacturing structure, with about 4,300,000 companies operating throughout the country as a whole. A growth of Italian companies in all sectors is desirable and should be pursued through mergers and acquisitions and synergies, which are underexploited at the moment. The aim should be to reach the critical mass that makes it possible to be more competitive both domestically and globally, to invest more in research and development, and to increase resilience to market turmoil. Nevertheless, Italy has already some well-positioned excellences on foreign markets in areas which are not directly perceived as Italian, namely the mechanical, the chemical, and the pharmaceutical industries, and some high-tech areas. The Italian manufacturing industry is therefore much more than just fashion, food, and furniture, which are areas of excellence we are all proud of, but we would rather they were not the only ones known outside our borders. As export data show, and according to the Doing Business 2016 ranking, our access to international trade is first in the world. Among the best-selling products in the world, 1 out of 5 is Italian. Export growth towards non-European countries in 2015 was 3.5%, with the best results recorded in the United States of America, where sales grew by 20.9%. This is a satisfactory result, even though there is huge potential for improvement. 25% of this export is accounted for by small businesses alone, while medium and large-sized enterprises account for the remaining 75%. These are the national champions that drive the economic system and the country, and contribute to enhance its influence, its importance, and its growth. However, foreign direct investments have margins for improvement. Today, investments are back, thanks to major projects by Amazon, Cisco, and Apple, to mention just a few. In order to deliver the final qualitative leap, we must carry out the process of reforms as well as communicate our offering more effectively, make good use of digital platforms to support the Made in Italy brand, along with the fundamental involvement of the banking system.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is the third panel of the morning. Our focus is on the unknowns about Italy. I believe those two videos really set the scene for us here. Former U.S. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld famously talked about what we know versus what we don't know. He discussed known knowns, things that we know, known unknowns, things we know that we don't know, and unknown unknowns, things we don't know that we don't know. I know it's confusing, but we're going to try to discuss the latter two and with respect to Italy and hopefully get some better results than Rumsfeld had in Iraq. So I want to call up each of the panelists, if you could join me on stage here. Ladies first, Maria Francesca Carli of BDT and Company. Maria Francesca is a former investment banker at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. She is based here in New York. I'd also like to call up Stefano Caselli, professor of Università Bocconi, which is the first Italian private university to grant a degree in economics. He specializes in banking and finance. Luigi Lazzareschi of Sofidel, a $2 billion private family-run business that makes tissue. Dr. Luca Pani of the Italian Medicines Agency, IFA. It's like the FDA, he tells me, but without the F, without the food. Mr. Haresh Patel, co-founder and CEO of Mercatus, which is based in San Francisco, an energy investment management company. Massimo Scaccabarozzi of Pharma. You are the president of Italy's leading pharmaceutical industry group. And Mr. Roberto Napolitano, editor-in-chief of El Sole 24, often considered the Italian Financial Times. Unfortunately, I don't speak Italian, and he does, so we have brought his interpreter. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with family-run businesses. They form the backbone of Italy's economy. And Maria Francesca, your firm has a $9 billion fund investing in lots of these companies. You give advice, you arrange funding, you provide strategic direction. Talk to us a little bit about Italy's small to medium-sized enterprises and the family-run businesses. What is the distinction of Italy's family-run businesses versus those from elsewhere?
Yeah, thank you for having me today, and it's really a pleasure to be here because our fund actually, as you said, is 9 billion of assets under management. Our second fund is 6 billion, and it is really special in the sense that we have capital only from families who own businesses, and we do invest with families in companies that are owned by families. Mm-hmm. In that respect, we cannot not love Italy, because Italy is exactly the place where the most successful brand growth is driven, and tradition is really driven by the competence of families. And the reason why we are so different is that we believe our capital can be extremely helpful for these families in certain specific events. Can be when they want to grow and merge with other companies. They might not have the capital, or they might not want to lever the company too much. And so we can provide the capital to do that. Second, local companies that might want to expand abroad and enter into a new market, especially being the United States, we can provide the capital to do that. And third is succession planning. As such, in Italy, there are many beautiful companies being founded ages ago, years ago, where there is now a new generation coming in, and where there might be capital needed for monetization of part of the families. So all these three factors where our capital is provided can be very much utilized in Italian companies for their growth.
Now, there's a myth out there that family-run businesses tend to be conservative. They're a little bit resistant to change. What's been your experience there?
I would say that more than conservative or resistant to change, I think they are very proud of what they are built. They are very proud of their brand and their heritage. And maybe the fear is that either acquiring or being merged or becoming part of a larger platform is going to be detrimental to what it is, their competence. The way we overcome that is in different ways. First, we are very comfortable with minorities. And so that the family, the owner, the management, normally the family is also the chief executive, can continue to run their business. We're not going to change their business plan. We are there to support them with the capital and with their competencies that are outside of what they have to continue growing. It is true that because of this heritage and because of the proudness of what we are, sometimes we feel that scale and dilution is a word that people don't like. You know, whenever you put a capital in, obviously there is an element of dilution. But that dilution can be value accretive as you basically become part and contribute to a larger business.
Well, let's bring in Luigi here. Luigi, of course, Lazzareschi of Sofidel, a family-run business. It's privately held. Maria Francesca talked about scale, dilution, giving up control, even though they're looking at minority stakes. What are your thoughts there when it comes to a family-run business and seeking that advice from outside?
Probably I may have a different approach. I don't like small is beautiful. Unfortunately, in Italy there are too many companies that they are small, and the system like to keep at the end the small companies in small company in Italy, not helping them growing. And Italy also, I believe, also on the panel that we have seen before, those is not working as a team. Unfortunately, our culture, but also our religion, taught us to work by our own and to do everything by our own. Several times in this kind of happenings, I've seen people say that we should work more and more as a team, but Italians are not good to work as a team.
So this is a cultural issue then, a corporate culture?
Yeah, I believe so. So I believe the best thing at the end will be to take this as a fact. I mean, we are not able to work as a team. So in general, we should favor stars. We should favor champions. We should favor excellent companies, stars, to bring, let's say, our flagship and to eventually to go abroad and make investment. All the trials that have been made in the past, I believe, didn't work really well.
Professor, you look like you want to say something. Stefano Castellis with the Università Bocconi, talk to us a little bit about the evolution of family-run businesses in Italy, especially in light of the economic crisis from a few years ago.
Okay, first of all, I have to say that a family business is not something specific of Italy. If I give a look to statistics, because we have sometimes to avoid this sort of misunderstanding that Italy is the country of family business. Italy is one of the countries of family business. If I mention India, for example, Germany, Spain, we have plenty of countries with family business. So Italy is one of the countries. And in my opinion, family business, there are a lot of pros and a lot of cons. Pros, as Maria Francesca said before, means that owners are very proud. And proud means they have an incredible capability to leverage the asset, to leverage the brand name, to leverage the intangible asset. If I may mention some experience in Italy, for example, Armani is a family business. Yeah, it is. Barilla is a family business. But I have also to consider other stories. For example, Allianz Boots. that ran one of the largest mergers in US because they bought Walgreens, was owned by Italian entrepreneurs. So we have to consider that family business is something very, very powerful. Obviously, we have to manage and to avoid risks related to cons. Cons means family business is not able, in a certain sense, to identify a path to growth. Family business overlaps with small and medium enterprise. Yes, we know, but pros are much more than cons. That's the reason why investors are looking around family business. Just to mention statistics, if I see, for example, a new securities issued on the Italian stock exchange in the last 5 years, 60% are bought by foreign investors. And all these foreign investors are related to US, China, and Western Europe. So you have to take into consideration the fact Italy is not the right place to invest. Italy is a place where it makes sense to invest, and statistics exactly confirm it, because family business is a good legacy, a good support to help investment.
Maria Francesca, your time horizon when you look at these companies is fairly long, 14 years, right?
Yes, so our second fund is 14-year-old long, and we underwrite normally a business plan which is around 10 years. And this is exactly to the point, and I think Stefano's point of like a Walgreens is a very good example. It takes time for a company to evolve from a local company to a longer one. And so
What is the biggest risk then in investing in these small to medium enterprises?
I guess for us, it's very different from a normal investor where generally investors try to get out in a horizon of 5 years. And so the risk in that case is that they might not be able to get out with a return that they need. And I totally agree with a comment made by the previous panel on risk-adjusted return. So in our case, we really, because of our business model, we want to grow the companies. We take a 10-year horizon, and we normally invest in securities that have a downside protection.
Got it. Okay, well, when we talk about risks, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, which is Italy's banking sector and the bad loans. This is in the headlines every single day. Stefano, I know that this is your area of specialty. Give us an update on the bad loans. Many investors assume the worst, and they see Monte dei Paschi as a poster child for this sector, but it's more than that, isn't it?
Well, it's a tricky topic, so it's very hot. It's again, in my opinion, it's better to come back to statistics and numbers, because
Please.
when we talk about family business, but especially banks, the risk is that emotions became much more important than the real world. Let's come back to numbers. If I consider the average percentage of non-performing loans in the Italian banking system, exactly we have the same numbers like all the other countries in continental Europe. So it's not exactly true that Italy is the place of non-performing loans, because if I consider the asset side of continental Europe bank, more or less 5% is on average the level of non-performing loan. The problem in Italy is not related to non-performing loan and is not exactly related to the level of capital, because again, if I consider common equity tier 1, again, Italian banks, including Monte Paschi di Siena, shows a very high level of CET1. The issue is related to consolidation process, because if I give a look to numbers, the issue in Italy is that we do not have very large banks. If we have 2 large banks, because UniCredit and Banca Intesa stays in the top 10 in Europe, but compared to other countries, that means Germany, France, and Spain, we are missing a larger scale of banking systems. So our bet, in a certain sense, our gamble, it's related to the possibility of the Italian banking system to consolidate it very quickly.
Right.
And the government did a good job, because I consider the reform of Banche Popolari was something unbelievable, and it was done, and also the reform of Banca di Credito Cooperativo is in the process. So in the last 12 months, in my opinion, we are betting a lot on the capability of the Italian banking system to merge and to consolidate. If the Italian banking system will be able to do that, my opinion is that the future of the country could be absolutely good, considering the banking system. And the banking system is the backbone of a country.
And just want to introduce our final panelist, Jimmy Halleck of Leucadia, the New York-based conglomerate. Welcome. Leucadia owns investment bank Jefferies, along with companies in the mining, healthcare, and telecom industries. Welcome.
Thank you, and apologies for being late.
Traffic, what can you do, right?
I had a board meeting this morning.
Board meeting, okay. We'll get to that, no. Good approval. Maria Francesca, you want to say something about banks?
No, yes. So obviously, I think that the banking system not being consolidated is really a mirror also of the industrial system, whereby as we are all here because from my perspective, we would like to really help the consolidation, buying and aggregating these companies. But one point is also interesting compared to any other countries or the US, especially if you look at the Italian industry, is mainly being funded by the Italian banks. The capital market is extremely lower. There is much less bonds or any other structural instruments and so I think that despite all we said, without the banking system in Italy, there would not be the industrial sector and the growth that there has been and the funding that there has been, especially when you think about the time of crisis. At that point in time when the capital market were shut, only the companies, the industrial companies were able to get the funding was always to their relationship banks. And that will always stay.
Well, Massimo Scaccaparozzi of Pharma, you are the president of Italy's leading pharmaceutical industry group. Tell us how critical the health of the banking system is to your sector.
I don't want to say that the bank system is critical to our sector because we are a sector that is quite independent by the bank. Because I think that from a pharmaceutical point of view, I have a quite nice story to tell because we are working on our own. We are funding, we are investing on our own. And probably something that is not well known about us because everyone knows that we are the industry of innovation, we are the industry of R&D. You should know that in Italy, for instance, we have one of the highest expectancy life in the world. We can live till 82. And in the last 50 years, every 4 months of life, we have gained 1 month. That probably means not so much. But if you consider that it's 6 hours a day, please consider that tonight when you arrive at midnight, you can go back at 6 p.m. and have 6 hours to enjoy your life compared to your grandfather or your grandmother. So it's quite nice. But this is not our reality. This is very well known. What is unknown about us is that we are an industry, a manufacturing industry, that has a remarkable impact on the country economy. I have some number. I have here some number that, in order to take memory of this, we are more than 200 companies, 63,000 employees. With the third parties, we can double the number of employees. We are 30 billion manufacturing value. And 73% of this is the export value. So we are exporting everywhere, and every year we invest 2.5 billion in R&D, half in R&D and half in innovation technology. And what is important is I was very interested in the fact that in Italy is a family business. In the pharmaceutical, we have a fantastic mix because 40% of our industry, of our business is owned by Italian company. 60% is owned by multinational company, foreign company. And of course, our production is export-led because we had 33% of export in 95. If you go back in 91 and you look at the rank of export in the Italian industry, we were in 58th position in the rank. Now we are in the podium. We are playing between second and third in the rank because we are growing like huge. And also in terms of production, I want to make a comment here. If Italy would been only pharmaceutical, for us in the last 3-4 years, we didn't have any crisis because the production in the pharmaceutical sector has been growing 10% in 5 years compared to the average of the manufacturing industry that was decreasing 7%. And also at the end of 2015, we were growing 5% in an economic crisis. I would like to say that is not too bad.
All right, above trend growth rate.
Yeah, I have also some good numbers for the US because among the big European country, Italy is, believe me, not can be, is the European hub for US pharma companies. We are first in the rank among manufacturing for US investment, much more than any other countries. And also we are leader in export because if you consider versus US, because if you consider the other exporter like France and the UK, we export more than double than they export. So we are investing in production, and this morning it was interesting because I heard the fact that in Italy you can only invest on consolidated business. Again, here I have a nice story to tell, because we have done a research, and our investment in consolidated business is only 32%, because 26% is on new launches, and 47% is the attractivity from other countries' production. So I have this nice story to tell, and I think that pharmaceutical should be considered as an asset of Italy, and a very nice asset in which invest, because also the cooperation and collaboration with the institution, like the government and the IFA, is very good.
Okay, we'll get to IFA in a moment, but I want to bring in Jimmy Halleck here. This is a nice story that Massimo says he's been telling. You over at Lucadia have invested in Linkem, which is a wireless broadband provider. Would you look at an Italian pharmaceutical company as a potential investment? What would you look at there?
You know, we don't have much history investing in pharmaceuticals, so that wouldn't be a sector we'd look at. We have looked at numerous other sectors in Italy. You know, many of the comments that I've been hearing are consistent with our own experience in Italy, in that there's a lot of family-owned businesses. Sometimes there are generational transfers that may present opportunities. We are a New York-based investment firm. The company we've invested nearly $300 million in effectively a startup in Italy. Foreign investment has exceeded $400 million in this company. It's doing very well. 100% of the management team of the team is Italian, 100% of the customers are Italian, and it's thriving. One of the things that I think that's kind of remarkable in our experience is that it took a lot of work to convince the team about its own potential, about the company's potential. The story of a Google or a Facebook doesn't exist in Italy. And coming to this type of company and saying, you know, it's essentially a tech company, and saying, listen, this could grow to millions of subscribers, it could grow to hundreds of millions of dollars of EBITDA and billions of dollars of market value in one generation.
So you could see the potential before the employees themselves could?
It's not just before. It's taken years for even the senior employees to see the potential. And we're now finally getting there. And I think it's that dynamic. I don't know if it's cultural or just the fact that there aren't enough case studies of these types of successes in Italy is something, you know, we all need to work on.
Got it. Well, I want to bring in Haresh here. Haresh Patel is co-founder and CEO of Mercatus, based in San Francisco. Mercatus is actually an energy investment management company. Please explain to us what that means, and bring to us your latest in terms of your investments in Italy, because it's the first European country in which you've invested. Was that by design or a happy coincidence here?
Thanks for the opportunity, Fernando, for having me speak here. So our platform is a software platform. We're Silicon Valley based, and we chose an active strategy to seek out some of the top global power producers. And just a quick, what's going on with the power industry? There are about 5 technologies coming out of Silicon Valley: solar, wind, storage, electric car, and self-driving car. A lot of people don't realize that about $12 trillion is going to come into this market over the next 15, 20 years to basically turn the energy industry as we know it upside down. You can see that already in Europe, where some of the large companies like RWE and E.ON, their stocks are down 80, 90%. The industry is under attack from renewable energy. So why did we come to Italy? Enel Green Power is the largest renewable energy player in the world. It's not very well known, but they are highly respected in the world by their peers, and they're feared by their competitors. And our strategy was to find the 2 biggest market leaders to start our company. We secured NRG in the US, which is the US largest independent power producer, and Enel. And Enel for us was an opportunity to see 6 or 7 years in the future. That's how far ahead they are compared to the competition. And they were doing a good job negotiating with us and saying, Haresh and Mercatus team, you don't realize how much we're going to be a factor of other customers copying exactly what we do, so you got to give us a good price. So we gave them a good price. So they're a customer of ours for about a year. And in essence, what we're doing is we are helping them with basic productivity. The world of energy production has changed. They're not building nuclear power plants. They're building thousands of power plants of solar and wind. Unfortunately, the diligence required and the paperwork required takes the same amount as a large power plant. So if you're trying to do 5,000 power plants versus one, you need a lot more people, you have a lot more paperwork, and the current processes don't scale. And we're giving them productivity software to get their workforce to collaborate better and make faster and smarter decisions. We think with NL, with the right business processes and change management and our software, we can take out $400 to $500 million of operating cost and give them 5 to 6 months of time advantage in the development of a power plant. Those are game changers. Toyota proved that in their industry. Walmart did that. Ryanair. Anytime you can get a structural cost advantage, we think a partnership with NL can give us an opportunity to really help have the first Google or Facebook of energy emerge. So that's what we're doing, and we were very active to pursue NL because we know that having a strong customer makes us a strong company.
Well, as a follow-up to that, I mentioned how you're based in San Francisco, so words like innovation and disruption are in your lifeblood. What has surprised you the most about the flexibility, the adaptability of an established utility like Enel, the management, whether it's the people or the corporate culture?
Good question. What really surprised us is, in general, utilities are not known to make decisions fast. They're not used to making decisions.
They're dinosaurs.
Yeah, they're dinosaurs. Thank you. You put the words in my mouth. And so we've had most customers, we've had 2 or 3 year sales cycles. Enel, from the day we knocked on the door to the day we signed a contract, and it was our largest contract in our company's history, it was 6 months. It was lightning speed. So they get it. They understand the digitization of their workforce, what that means in terms of competitiveness, in terms of driving out cost, in terms of beating their competitors to putting proposals on the table. So we like it because it matches Silicon Valley speed. And in this industry, when there's that much disruption going on, if you're big and slow, it's a dangerous quadrant. If you're big and fast, you're pretty dangerous.
Dr. Luca Pani, you're nodding your head. The pharmaceutical industry in Italy, is it big and fast?
It is, but the thing that I was nodding my head is that the same thing that he was saying about energy had already happened in the field of medicine and in pharmas. I mean, the transition and the disruption in transition is already happened. The medicine as we knew it is dead. And the only thing that now counts is the amount of information, and medicine has been transformed in an information technology company. That's what it is. The reason why probably I'm here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity, is that we were the first regulator who understood that this was coming. So we invest hugely in IT. We have the largest IT system now in the world for a regulator. We are able to pinpoint and trace any patient that is under our whole health system. And we have differential contract based on payment by result. Basically, we pay if the drug works. We have the money back in return. And since we are doing this for the state government and we oversees about 26 billion per year of expenditure, this has proven to be remarkable, successful. To give you an idea, our medium price, I cannot disclose the final price for secrecy agreement, but our medium price, which is public, for the very famous or infamous hepatitis C drug that everybody knows about, but it's been very expensive, our medium price is about 4 times less than the US-based price. And as of today, I can go on my dashboard and I can see who is using what in real life. We have 650,000 patients that are now treated under this management agreement, real life data. We process all this real life data, and this has proven to be an informatic revolution. There was nothing to do with biology. It has nothing to do with pharma, with medicine. Our assessors are assessors now in IT, and they're processing an incredible amount of information that we use to renegotiate and get better deals. Okay, this has proven to be, believe it or not, and I close, an advantage for the companies. Because companies, when they develop a drug, if they are really, really good, they develop the drug in what, 2,000 individual, 3,000 perhaps? On the first year of launch, they take millions of individuals. Okay, now do you want to know the data for that drug in real life on a registration trial? The real life will tell you safety, efficacy, all kinds of side effects, responses. You want to know that data. And think about having a regulatory validated stamp on that data. the value is among us. You can go back to Blue Cross Blue Shield, to Kaiser Permanente and say, look, I got an Italian agency-based certified registry that tells me that my drug does this, this, and that. And that's the value I want to put forward to you.
The data and analytics angle is greatly misunderstood and perhaps not appreciated. Massimo, you mentioned earlier that 60% of Italy's pharmaceutical industry is owned by multinationals, companies outside Italy. Within the global pharmaceutical industry, we're seeing massive consolidation. You have Allergan and Teva, right? And Allergan and Pfizer soon as well. What does this mean for Italy's pharmaceutical industry?
It means that we can even consolidate our the presence that we have in the market, making these kind of synergies, because we have a huge presence in the market of this company. And so when these companies merge or acquire other company, they can increase their potential of investment, focusing on the area of investment. Today, I don't know if you are aware of the cost of R&D to develop drugs. A few years ago it was 800 million euros or dollars. Now we are close to 2.6 to 2.7 billion, and it takes 10 years to develop a drug. So we are facing an issue that are the cost of R&D that are increasing and increasing and increasing. We have drugs, for instance, to develop them, it costs more than 4 billion. So you can imagine why now all these mergers are trying to make synergies between each other and focusing on specific area, because the R&D is completely changing. We are moving from a closed innovation we had 20 years ago to an open innovation, looking at the market with the innovation network that we have today. So there is a networking between companies, and so this merger and acquisition will, of course, give added value to our sector.
And Maria Francesca, I know that you are looking into perhaps investing in pharmaceutical companies.
Yes, so we do not have a industry focus, because our focus is really investing with families. So we are generalists in terms of sectors. Actually, we have on our board Toby Cosgrove, who is Cleveland Clinic. So we are looking at the sector. We do agree that there is a sector where consolidation is helpful. It's a sector where scale and capital is needed. And I think it's also a sector where you can really match people who are in the developing phase and that need the money for the new patents versus people that are in the cash flow stage. And so it does make a lot of sense. It's also a very global sector whereby we really believe that, as mentioned, there are still a lot of Italian companies that are closely held in this sector that probably would be beneficial for them to have more capital to continue growing.
And speaking of capital, there's also human capital. Jimmy, you were talking earlier about the talent at some of the companies you invested in, like LinkM, for instance. Professor Stefano, I would like you to weigh in here and talk to us a little bit about what's unknown about the education system in Italy, particularly at your university, that would create the talent pool, the future managers that can lead Italian companies to something more innovative.
Yeah, it's in a certain sense, it's the competition for the future, because when we talk about industries and business we are talking about today, and talking about education means to talk about the future. So education, in a certain sense, is a proxy for the future trends. And what I have to say is that the Italian system, it's really a sort of educational hub. And it's, again, something probably unknown, which is better to stress a lot. It's an educational hub for two different reasons. The first one, Italian students has, in a certain sense, a natural trend to stay in Italy and to travel all around the world. And every time my job is to walk around the world, I discover Italian talents leading, staying in top positions in all the universities all around the world, also in corporations. And in a certain sense, is a proxy of the fact that Italian schools did a good job. On the other way around, the world is changing, and especially the relationships between US universities and European universities are changing fast. If I consider 15 years ago, in a certain sense, it was not possible for a continental Europe university to run an agreement to exchange students between US and continental Europe. Now it's absolutely happening, because also US students are seeing continental Europe as a hub, not only for the price of education, which is, however, lower and is becoming relevant, this kind of element, but especially because it's really an hub generating value, education, and so on. So Italy is playing a role, not only in the economic sector. For example, my university is very well placed in the top 10 all around the world for Financial Times. But if I consider polytechs or pharmaceutical universities and technical university are really doing a great job. So it's really a part of the backbone of the country in this sense.
Well, Haresh, can you give us some specifics here? Tell us about the talent of the executives that you encountered at Enel. In the US, there's a lot of concern about skills mismatch, right? You have the job openings, but you don't have the right candidates for it. What's been your experience when it comes to the quality of Italian engineers, managers?
Well, we just raised our Series B at the end of December, so we've had the capital to make investments, and we had a lot of good candidates lined up. We built a strong team here in Europe already, and we have 2 people in Italy. We have folks in France now, in the UK and Ireland, and as well as Germany. And I got to say, it is a talent war. I mean, at the end of the day, your company is only as good as the people that you hire. And our 2 Italian employees are doing really, really well. So it gives us a lot of encouragement around when we hear the universities putting people out, because the lifeblood of who we need to hire and staff up. We're going to have to hire from sales to business development to software development. We've got to decide where to put that talent pool, and right now it looks very encouraging to look at the Italian market for us.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, our company, our Italian company now has over 500 employees.
Lincoln.
The average age is a little below 30.
Really?
75% of the employees are women. The work ethic is fantastic. I mean, you go and you visit the headquarters and people are still at the office at 8 o'clock at night. It's got the energy that you would find in Silicon Valley. There's no difference. At the senior levels, the people are skilled, and it's a technical company. The engineering staff, the technical staff are as good as it gets. And what we're doing is a little bit different, and without going into the details of this company, what we're doing, we are in fact the world leader in Italy in terms of numbers of subscribers for the technology that we're doing globally. So Chinese companies are using us as a case study. There's a Mobile World Congress is going on in Barcelona now, and one of the Chinese subscribers has big screens with this little Italian company plastered all over the conference. So it's that type of, that concern was not a concern for us. Our expectations were exceeded.
Mm-hmm. These are investments in Italy. I want to talk a little bit about an investment from Italy in the United States. Luigi Lazzareschi of Sofidel, your company, Sofidel, recently acquired Green Bay Converting, which is based in Wisconsin, to expand in the United States. Tell us what led you to this investment.
Yes, before saying that, can I add just something to the human labor? I might deny that in front of an Italian labor union, a trade union. But I have to say that the other being, quite educated, in Italy it's quite easy to find an electrical engineer, for example. In US, it's not so easy to find an electrical engineer. I have to say that having experience of having our more or less 30 production sites in Europe and in US, that people are very dedicated to the company which they are working for in Italy. They love the company, they like what they are doing, and they are very loyal. Mm-hmm. Things that is very unusual to find in any other European state, in my experience, but also to the United States. Coming from our investment, yes, we started in 2012. First we acquired a company, then we built a greenfield operation, then recently we are acquiring another company that is based in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and another one is in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And then we have launched an important greenfield operation. Just to give you an idea, the total all of this is in the range of $600 million. That is quite a large investment for privately owned companies, the one that we have. Where are the reasons? Where are the opportunities? For sure, Europe was starting to be a little bit too small for us. We have to still the desire to grow is very high. in the company, and we have chosen but at the same time, the dimension of our company is not so big to face, say, sorry for what I'm saying, strange markets. So we would have liked to remain in, let's say, Western world, and United States. One of the reasons why we chose North America and United States for sure was very important. For sure, it's the largest market, still growing even in our sector. But there are two main important reasons and opportunities. One is that, as probably somebody was saying before, in Italy there are important districts. The tissue district in Italy, in Lucca, is is number one worldwide. There are several, few companies like ours, but all the chain of production, machinery, and our industry is much more ahead of what you might find today in the US. That is mainly also because the most important US company didn't invest much in the last 20 years.
They stopped investing?
They stopped. They didn't invest. The US, our competitors in US. So it's a big opportunity for our company.
They just stayed still, basically.
Yes. They just cash. And I believe that this is not only in our industry, the paper and tissue grade paper business, but that happens in many other basic industrial sector. So and we as Italian, we don't know that here there is an opportunity because we believe that probably we are small, privately owned companies in Italy where everything is big, large. They are more advanced. I don't think that is true, at least in the basic manufacturing industry. I believe Italians have a lot to say in this kind of industry. So.
Wonderful, thank you, Luigi. I want to bring in Roberto Napoletano, who is the editor-in-chief of El Sole 24, often considered the Italian Financial Times. In addition to serving as editor-in-chief, you've also written extensively on Italy's economy. What is the story on the domestic economy that people outside Italy need to hear right now?
My English is not perfect. I prefer to speak in Italian. La storia, sono state dette cose molto importanti, però per capire un po' come facciamo noi al Sole parliamo con i numeri. Dall'inizio della crisi a oggi l'Italia ha perso un quarto della produzione industriale e lotta per un altro quarto. Ha perso 10 punti di PIL e il Mezzogiorno ne ha persi 15.
So I'd like to speak in Italian. And to make things better understood, let's talk numbers. To talk about Italy and its story since the beginning of the macroeconomic crisis and Italy's domestic crisis, it lost about 1/4 of its industrial production, and it's fighting to maintain the second fourth. It lost about 10 points in its GNP, and the southern part of Italy lost about 15 points.
L'Italia nella quale sono cresciuto io non esiste più, è un paese più piccolo e i danni che abbiamo subiti sono pari a quelli di una guerra mondiale persa.
The Italy that I grew up in no longer exists. It is a much smaller country, and the damage we have witnessed these years is equal to a world war that has been lost.
Ma tra tutte queste macerie sono sopravvissuti 400 miliardi di esportazioni che ogni anno realizzano 100 miliardi di attivo, di saldo attivo, e questa è l'unica voce all'attivo nel nostro paese.
Among this damage, however, Italy has managed to make $400 billion in exports. That is yearly $100 billion in the black, and only with this entry alone.
L'Italia sta, secondo me, ripartendo molto lentamente, però deve sapere su che cosa e su chi scommettere.
So this gives us a sense that Italy is relaunching itself, although very slowly. But what we must know is what we can have confidence of.
Noi crediamo che l'Italia sia un paese conosciuto nel mondo per la moda, è conosciuto nel mondo per l'alimentare, è conosciuto nel mondo per l'arredo e il designer. Sono primati assoluti molto importanti, ma il 50% di quel surplus è meccanica strumentale, meccanica di precisione, automotive. C'è un motore di intelligenza che nel mondo appartiene esclusivamente all'Italia.
So we have seen that Italy is very famous for its fashion, for its food industry, furniture design. These are all very important sectors, and they are definitely the top of Italy's industries. But we must also see that 50% of Italy's production is in mechanics, machine tools, precision mechanics, automotive. So the drive that we have, that we see throughout the world of industry throughout the world is Italian, is mainly Italian.
Non è vero che in Italia non si fa ricerca e innovazione. Molte volte non appare perché non c'è un vero sconto fiscale, un vero credito d'imposta per la ricerca e l'innovazione, e quindi le imprese lo presentano come costo. Ma se non si facesse questa ricerca e questa innovazione, come potremmo avere questo surplus nelle esportazioni? Se voi entrate in un supermercato americano o in un supermercato australiano o italiano e pagate il conto, il lettore di quel codice a barre è stato inventato da un'azienda italiana, e di queste invenzioni di prodotto il sistema italiano è davvero pieno.
So it's not true that there is no research and innovation in Italy. It's just not seen, it's not tangible, because there are no tax credits for it. Italian companies see it as a cost, a burden. So it's not true that there's no research and innovation done. Otherwise, how would there be a surplus in our exports? So in Italy, if you go to a supermarket, in Spain, in Australia, in the United States, and you use the barcode reader, that barcode reader is actually made from an Italian company. So innovation is definitely all over throughout the Italian system of production.
In Italia sono state fatte negli ultimi 2 anni delle cose buone, riforma del mercato del lavoro, la tassa di cui si parlava prima, quella indipendente dagli utili, è stata in parte eliminata. Sono fatte tante cose buone. La cosa che non va bene per me è l'eccesso di ottimismo. Quindi noi dobbiamo evitare che quello che è un desiderio venga presentato come una realtà. Però dobbiamo cogliere i segnali di cambiamento.
So in Italy, over the past 2 years, we have made some progress. Some successful reforms have been enacted on the labor market. Some taxes for enterprises have been eliminated. So we see that, but we must have very cautious enthusiasm. I see a great mistake that is made is that the desire to move on, to be successful, equals reality. But that's not true. We must be calm and have cautious enthusiasm, but also at the same time see the signs of change.
Nel dopoguerra l'Italia era un paese agricolo e in pochi anni è diventato prima un'economia industriale e poi una potenza economica mondiale. Nel cuore del miracolo economico, dal 58 al 63 l'Italia cresceva molto più del 6%, nel 61 è cresciuta più dell'8%. Questi numeri ci aiutano a capire la distanza del cammino che dobbiamo percorrere ancora oggi, ma non ci devono togliere la convinzione di poter ripetere il miracolo economico italiano.
So after the Second World War, Italy was mainly a farming country, but after a few years it became an industrial economy, and then it turned into what we see today as a world global economic power. And at the heart of this, between 1958 and 1968, we've seen a growth of over 6%. In 1961, a growth of over 8%. And so these figures should help us understand the distance and the pathway that we must still continue to walk on, so that we can see progress and see and have the confidence that this Italian miracle can be repeated.
Dr. Luca, I'm sorry, Dr. Luca Pani, you wanted to jump in for a moment there.
I just wanted to reinforce what Roberto Napolitano is saying. Can you imagine what will happen when you take all this numerically controlled machinery and all fine tuning and you put it into the production of pharmas? Production of pharmas has the highest value between the goods and what is released, right? You might have guns probably and other things like this, but we don't want to go into that. In drugs, what happened is the combination between what Roberto Napolitano just said and what Massimo Scaccabarozzi has said. So the incredible exporting value was due to this ability and the intelligence of the Italian manufacturer in terms of quality of products, same as fashion and everything else. They made in Italy of the pharmas. And, believe it or not, a piece of legislation from the European Commission that was called the Falsified Medicine Directive. The Falsified Medicine stated in 2012 that if you produce a medicine, you should qualify the medicine with a criminal act that they would say, I'm certifying that this medicine is good. Okay, and there you will be held responsible for what you have said. Everybody was scared about the fact, the Chinese producer and the Indian producer will blow out of the water. The story has been that after 4 years, most of those sites are closed completely. They were not able to certify it at the level of the WHO, the FDA, and stuff like this. And the Italian market emerged and became the first exporter in the world.
I see.
This is the story.
That's good historical context there. As we wrap up, because we're running out of time here, I wanted to check in with each of you to give me one sentence on what you think is the biggest known unknown or unknown unknown about Italy, based on your experience. Why don't we start with Jimmy?
I think unknown reality is that there is a lot of potential in Italy. I mean, we see it every day, and someone made a comment earlier about how southern Italy has lost so much of their GDP and so forth. Even in southern Italy, business is great, and there's just a lot of potential. I feel like it's turning the corner.
Potential. Maria Francesca?
I think there is a lot of unknown talent, and there is not enough confidence to get the talent out and also to attract talent in.
Stefano?
I do believe known unknown is the sum of the assets we have. So Italy is an incredible sum of assets, tangible, intangible assets, and in a certain sense the gamble and the risk, but especially the gamble nowadays, is to create behind the sum of the assets the legacy of the country. Okay, that's something probably missing in Italy, but the sum of the assets is unbelievable.
Luigi?
The human capital is the unknown that has to be recognized and valued.
Luca?
It is known that Italians do it better, and what is unknown is that it's true. Actually, it is true.
Harash?
Yeah, I think the unknown is that in the world of technology coming from Silicon Valley is that if you have a 6-month or 2-year lead, it's considered eternity.
Oh, yeah.
And Enel has a 6-year lead. And they're actually pouring more investment into this whole transformation of energy. So we may have on our hands the next Google of energy.
The next Google of energy. All right, you heard it. Massimo?
I think that it's a sum of everything I heard. Potential, human value, quality, and I agree with Luca. I don't want to say Italian do it better, but if I can summarize in one word, outcome, real outcome.
Real outcome. And Roberto?
Non voglio dire quello che è meno conosciuto, ma voglio dire quello che dovremmo fare noi come italiani. Cioè dovremmo cominciare a parlare meno male di questo paese, soprattutto meno male di quello che questo paese davvero merita.
I'm not going to talk about what is less known or what is known and unknown, but I am going to talk about what Italians need to do. We need to talk about our country, and we need to talk about what our country truly deserves.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you so much.
Testing 1, 2.
Okay, I'm around. I'm here now.
Okay.
Okay, wait, come with me to the conference room so I can give you a card.
So I can introduce the next speaker and panel.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We're not over yet. If you can take your seats, I think we're going to have another very interesting session this morning. Again, thank you, Scarlett, for being with us, and we hope to have you in Italy soon. Before we get into the fourth panel, which will be dedicated to CEOs, we're going to have a keynote by Luigi De Vecchi. He is from Citi. He's the chairman of Continental Europe for Corporate and Investment Banking. So it will be interesting to have now the perspective from somebody who's living in the U.S. but now works in Italy, to contrast with what we have heard so far. Luigi.
Not so soon. Fernando, thank you very much. Well, as a matter of fact, I, as Fernando said, have lived in the US for many years and have probably been now looking at Italy either from the outside or from the inside for the last more or less 30 years. And I have to tell you, I have never been actually more optimistic about Italy than at the current time. I can tell you that I speak regularly to investors, both strategic and financial. I'm regularly in the US, and I have actually witnessed over the last few years a change in sentiment. If we go back to the crisis, to 2008, there is no question that whoever was based in the US perceived that Europe was on the verge of a breakup. And as a result of that, people felt very uncomfortable in investing in Southern Europe in particular. The issues of Greece are very familiar with everyone. Same with Spain, same with Portugal, and Italy was part of that concept. The reality is that we all know how history went. We all know that Europe managed to stick together, a lot thanks to an Italian in Frankfurt. But the reality is that the sentiment has changed. Whilst in 2008, 2009, 2010, I would spend time here in New York, and investors, both debt and equity, were only asking, when is it that it's going to break up? How is it going to happen? How is it going to be fixed? Now the real discussion is a totally different one. It's cheap to invest in Southern Europe. What should we invest in? And that is really, literally, the discussion that we have on a weekly basis. And if you think about it, it's no surprise, because in a complex world like the one we live in, where would you want to put your money in right now? Would you put it in emerging markets? I think we all know that China is slowing down and it's still very expensive, that Russia is in a bit of a state of turmoil, especially with oil at $30 or around the $30. Brazil is in the middle of a political catastrophe at the moment, which has economic implications. And obviously India, of the famous BRICS, is the only place today that is still growing and doesn't seem at the moment to have too many issues, but it's a small market compared to some of the others. So you don't invest in the BRICS. How about the US? Well, the US has been growing by leaps and bounds, but history in the US shows that when unemployment falls below 5%, within 3 years, and let's knock on wood, there is a recession in the US. So again, a lot of investors today are actually looking around the world and wondering, is it the US where I'm going to put my money in? And I have to tell you, this is where Europe, and Southern Europe in particular, comes into play. So what we've seen is, over the course of the last couple of years, a real interest in investing in Southern Europe and in Italy in particular. Now, as we have heard today, there are some pros and cons about the country. There is no question that the country hasn't been growing, but if you look at the classic story of the North and the South, the north of Italy has actually been growing faster than any other region in Europe, faster than Germany, as an example. So when people think of Italy, they clearly are not thinking of investing in the South. They are thinking of investing in some of the best companies, European companies, global players in the North. And what has happened there, at least what I've observed, is some very positive developments in two fronts from my perspective. The first is that for the first time, I think the next panel is going to talk about coordination in the context of complexity. When I can tell you that for the first time, I see the public sector coordinating with the private sector in Italy. This is a huge new fact. If you go back to, when I started my career in the 80s, the private sector and the public sector were at odds with each other. You had the IRI, a state-owned enterprise, a conglomerate, effectively fighting for any asset that would come available with the private families, with the private companies. And there were real issues, and they were at loggerheads with each other. In the 90s, the pendulum started to shift. At the time, Mario Draghi became Director General of the Treasury. A process of privatization effectively started, and Italy started to move in a direction where private enterprises became effectively the flavor of the month. And privatization, one after the other in the 90s, really changed a little bit what had been this tension between the public and the private sector. This happened up until the time when, at the beginning of the new millennium, Telecom Italia was privatized and sold through an LBO, a very leveraged transaction, to a family. And history has basically shown that that privatization probably went too far. That company, as probably some of you will know, is basically at the moment in the middle of a contested discussion with some French shareholders. But it's effectively a company that has not been able to grow in the last 15 years as much as it would have liked. And so all of a sudden, it showed Italians that this whole concept of privatizing industries and of the private better than the public sector was not necessarily going to be true. And as some of the families that had made Italy in what it is in the 80s effectively faded away, what happened is the state, the government, reconstituted its DNA and created, there is, I think, Giulio Tremonti in the room, created effectively new arms with which it could actually help the economy. So as an example, the Italian Sovereign Wealth Fund has actually become a real partner for private enterprises in Italy. And so for the first time, we're starting to see the best of the private world coming together with the best of the public world. That to me is a very important new development that I haven't witnessed in Italy for a long time, and that I think is actually very positive. There has been a series of new investments, some of them strategic by the government, others minority investments into private companies. And again, at a time, especially after 2008, when investors were pulling out of Italy, this coordination between these two, public and private, has actually been helping significantly the country. And today, I think you will hear in the next panel, some of those CEOs that have been attracted to the public sector come from the private sector. They're ex-bankers or they're ex-managers of private companies. And we have seen that more and more. In addition, again, a very positive development, privatization have restarted in Italy. Last year, the largest privatization in Europe was the privatization of the post office. 3.5 billion euros were raised. And again, after 15 years, Italy is privatizing some of its industries. There is more coming. Third, it has been mentioned, the Italian banks. There is a famous statement that goes back to the early 90s, La foresta pietrificata, the petrified forest, that a minister at the time, Minister Carli, had mentioned. Well, it didn't change for 20 years, and I can tell you, make no mistake, mergers are going to happen in Italy in the banking sector. It's a question of weeks or months, not of years anymore. And when that will happen, you will start to see investors coming back into the sector. Fourth, and this is again something that I feel is, at least I have not witnessed in the past, we're seeing the Italian system, private and public, together working towards a common goal. I haven't seen that in 30 years. But I'm seeing now that in certain countries, in certain areas around the world, Italy moves together to go after certain opportunities. So again, I see that as a very positive sign. A second aspect that I believe it's also very positive is, and I think this goes back to some of the previous government, it has certainly been very true of the current government. As we discussed, as I mentioned before, as somehow the US investors shied away from interest in Italy during and after 2008, this is when the government started to build strong links with the rest of the world, with China, with Russia, with the sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East. And guess what? Plenty of people have actually invested in Italy in the last few years. If you think about it, Pirelli, as somebody mentioned, was acquired by a Chinese company, just like the same Chinese company acquired Volvo in Scandinavia. They kept the local management, and the idea is that they're going to grow it into a global company. Right, wrong, I cannot tell, but I can tell you I was formed in London, and I saw London effectively open up to the world. I think the current government reminds me a little bit of that. It is prepared to allow a Chinese company by Pirelli. I don't think Michelin could ever be acquired by a Chinese. And I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. It's a country that is opening up. The same is happening with Russian investors. I think you're going to see in the next panel the CEO of the second largest telecom company in Italy. It's owned by a Russian company, and it's merging with a Chinese company. So two huge players that have invested in Italy, have made good money in Italy, are consolidating the space. Third, sovereign wealth funds. I have personally helped the Qataris invest in what is the most important real estate development in Southern Europe, in Milan, Porta Nuova. This was a 2.5 billion euro investment that the Qataris made a year and a half ago, effectively believing that the tide was turning, and it was the right time to invest in Italy. So all this to say that Italy has actually been, I think, since the crisis hit, actually forming new ties with some of the investors that have had effectively money to put to play. This is where I think American investors should make no mistake. The fact that they have pulled out of Europe, and in particular Southern Europe, I think will cost them geopolitically over the course of the next few years. And my sense is that, especially at this time when Italy is turning the corner, also from a macroeconomic standpoint, we're starting to see the first signs of a comeback. I do think it would be in the interest of American investors to reconsider. That's certainly the kind of feeling I get from some of the discussion I'm having these days and in the last few months with some of the investors here. So I'm actually quite optimistic that, in line with what this conference should be about, we're going to see an increasing number of investment into Italy over the course of the next few years. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think you can hear me. Joe Connolly from CBS, please let's welcome Joe.
Thank you.
So this will be our concluding panel. So Joe, all is in your hands.
Thank you, Fernando. I've covered as a reporter hundreds or thousands of events, seldom of this quality. And this has been absolutely just fascinating for me to sit and listen to for the last hour and a half since I got off the radio here in New York this morning. And Fernando had asked me, he said, maybe you could mention at the end what it is that you learned about incentives to invest in Italy after you moderate this panel. And I can give you the answer, Fernando, already. You can market Italy by just choosing a few video clips from the wealth of insights that have been stated here today. There's your marketing message and your endorsements. It's just been extremely impressive. What I like covering the most about business news, I used to cover sports and politics, is the way that business people instinctively see opportunities and solutions, where politicians and others just gripe and complain and see brick walls. And I think that this instinctive recognition of solutions and opportunities is what we will see in the panel that you're about to hear. We also want as many of you as we have time for to speak as well and give us your suggestions and ideas as to how to increase investment in Italy. So our panelists will be Maximo Ibarra of Wind Telecom and Digital Innovations, serving 25 million customers. Maximo, thank you. Matteo Del Fonte, leader of Terna, the first grid operator for electricity generation. Camilo Greco, leader of JP Morgan in Italy, whose boss, Jamie Dimon, single-handedly stopped the sell-off in the stock market here in the U.S. Last week when he put a year's salary into stock. And also Stefano Sala, a former top advertising executive who's now doing wonderful things, inventing new state-of-the-art media digital platforms. And let's start by asking each of you my favorite first question, the question that business people ask each other, but they don't mean it as a cliche, they mean it as if they really want an honest answer. And that is, how's business for you? Briefly, what is the headline in your company right now, and what is the trend that you are most closely monitoring? Maximo.
Very good. I think, yes, this is probably one of the most relevant questions for a business person, business individual. My sector, as Luigi mentioned, is telecommunications. I like saying that telecommunications should move rapidly into communications. Telecommunications seems to be a little bit old-fashioned. And this being old-fashioned is for the simple reason that there are three words that happens to me to hear very often. And one is disruption, the second one is transformation, and the third one is digitalization. I think this is for most of the industries, but in particular for telecommunications is becoming quite impressive. So the telecom industry is changing very rapidly. On one hand, there is this perception of a commoditized industry, but on the other hand, there is the very impressive perception that probably telecommunication will be leading all many other industries as well in the future.
Other than commoditization.
Other than commoditization.
Which is what?
Yeah, because one of the approaches is that telecom is only networks.
Right.
So you have to roll out networks, you have to build up infrastructures. But in the end, telecommunications has to become more and more about customer engagement. Right. So it's a quite of shift in the mindset. And this has been the case also in the 90s, early years of this century, where telecommunication was probably leading the customer relationship management.
Right.
But now we need to move much faster into this customer engagement for the simple reason that customers out there, they have different behavioral partners. They are already dealing with most of the companies and sectors through different screens. Solutions that customers are expecting have to be more and more contextual, real time. And we need to recover that part. So this is the excitement that people working in telecommunications now are experiencing. So on one hand, we have to become very efficient. On the other hand, we need to invest rapidly into innovative ways of having an effective relationship with customers.
To personalize a commodity. Go back, this cycle goes back
to personalize a commodity, right. To have a very instant relationship,
right.
Which means that if we are willing to offer customers only a tariff or a data bundle, I think this is over. What we should be offering is something different. It's not only an experience, but it's as well like a product that not necessarily is only telecommunications or connectivity. You have the opportunity to see customers that are there. You know them very well. There could be more cooperation between different sectors like the banking, insurance, telecommunications, consumer, other sectors, where if we put together all these experiences, then customers can get much more advantages than before.
Very interesting.
So we are in this business.
Matteo, in the electricity business we've heard so much about, your headlines.
Yeah. No, I think we are kind of a very special case. You know, going back to Luigi De Vecchi's speech of Italy versus the rest of the world, we find ourselves in a kind of a special situation. On the business side, we are extremely focused on Italy. So the bulk of our activities are in Italy. And we have an expertise that would allow us to basically export our capabilities and do the same business outside Italy, like many important companies in the past, Italians, from the large energy companies to the telecommunication companies have done around the world, and specifically in LATAM. But this willingness to go outside is and export our capabilities is opposed by our international investors. So they say, please don't do it, basically. So we like you, and they own more than 50% of our capital.
Why don't they want you to do it?
Because they like what we do in Italy. They think we do it very well. They think it's very reliable. They think it's very efficient. They think it's very stable. And they tell us, should we want to go to Brazil? And maybe today, is shaky, Brazil, but maybe it's a good time to, buy because, probably you're picking the bottom of the market. And in a few years' time, you might be able to extract value. Terna was the second operator in Brazil only a few years ago before we exit at the peak of the market. So we would be ready, and we would have the expertise to go back. And they tell us, should we see an opportunity in Brazil, we go and do it ourselves, or we choose companies that have already exposure to Brazil. Wow. So we find ourselves in this, very peculiar situation of having our investors putting us in, I don't want to call it a corner, but it feels a bit like a corner, which is a comfortable corner today, because in this volatile environment from a market standpoint, having stable and visible annual budgets and forecasts is very much appreciated by the market. But this is sort of, impeding us from, exporting and doing more outside. And the way we are probably going to solve this kind of dilemma, because there needs to be a solution, is probably accepting the many propositions we have from financial investors from all over the world to team up. They like our expertise. They know that if they want to do our business, which is electricity transmission around the world, if they have a technical operator, they have much more chances of optimizing the investment and accepting their offer to do it together. So we put less capital, they put more money, but we still do the business outside.
So you'll do what you want to do anyway. Good.
As usual.
It's very candid answer. That's refreshing. Carmelo, what are you seeing? Are you as optimistic as Luigi was here, or do you take a different view?
I think that we are very optimistic about Italy, and we are optimistic about Europe at JP Morgan, and we're optimistic in the medium term. I think the first 2 months of the year, as you rightly mentioned, have been very challenging, with a dramatic reduction in the oil price per barrel, which has impacted financial services and the energy sector, and not yet spread the benefit in the wider consumer world, as it is expected that lower oil prices will lead to greater purchasing power for private customers and corporations. But we have seen the hit immediately on energy companies and financial institutions exposed to the oil sector. The capital markets dislocation that we have seen in the last few months has also decelerated the pace of capital raisings. I think in the first panel we had Eric Stein, who runs investment banking for JP Morgan in the States, mentioning that there was only one IPO since the beginning of the year in North America, which is frankly unusual. So I think that we do continue to be optimistic. I think we are particularly optimistic about Italian companies, as I think we are on the verge of embracing capital markets in a way that has not done before. But I think that the immediate situation is more challenging than we certainly expected at the beginning of the year. We do hope that things will stabilize coming towards the summer and end the year on a higher note.
Do you have a line of investors waiting to come in?
Well, I think I do have a lot of sympathy with what Luigi said. Whenever we speak to international investors about Italy, there is immediately, frankly, a smile on the face and interest in having access to a piece of Italian companies, more usually than not is with respect to private companies as opposed to public companies. But Italians' excellence, not only in brand building, but also in R&D and technology, is well known throughout the world. So there is a lot of interest for a piece of Italy.
Interesting that you say that. And just in the couple of hours that I have been here today, the mention of Italy or Milan brings a smile to people's face.
Yes.
And I've noticed that. And when they talk about growth that's happening in their businesses, it's so uplifting to see those smiles. And the first one I noticed that was with Stefano about how good, as I understand it, business is for you in media.
Yeah, but media are for sure fundamental drivers in the country cultural development. And in the last year, we enter in a more horizontal and participatory model, where everyone can produce content and information and can amplify the circulation of content and information. So a model where companies, individuals, public institution, movement are interrelated, are interdependent, but where each one could be a potential protagonist. So for this reason, I think that broadcaster should be able to look at these trends and continue to provide up-to-date information and entertainment services. There is also an increasing awareness that each business choice, a TV program or a advertising campaign, has today a strong impact on our society. And this is due mainly to social media, the diffusion of social media, and from the other side, from the amplification of people participation and engagement with any media method that is circulated. So an advertising campaign that, or a TV program conflicting with some common value of our society, for example, gender discrimination, environment care, or respect for diversity, will have a negative reputation effect, immediately a negative reputation effect, a boomerang effect we can call, that can immediately destroy the value of the advertising campaign, the audience of the program, or the image of the company. And there is another fact that I would like to underline, that is the impact that the digital economy has on media industry, because the media industry probably was the most impacted by the digital economy. And digital economy on in more four aspects. Content production, content distribution, emerging talents, and strategic alliance. If we speak about content production, TV programs should be developed and digitally engineered from the beginning in the production process just now. And a TV producer has in his mind the full digital, social, and mobile development of its program. From a content distribution point of view, 10 years ago, the lifetime of a program was coincident with the airtime of broadcasting. Now, the lifetime of a program begins with the lifetime of broadcasting and goes on with the digital long tail of consumption occasion, has delayed viewing or social sharing and so on.
Let me just pick up on that point of the digital advertising campaigns. And time is a little bit tight, and it's been a long morning. And come right to the point and ask each of you, how can your companies and companies like yours amplify the smile that people feel about Italy? And what can you do, and what can you suggest be done, or what are you willing to do to increase investment in Italy? What is the answer?
Yeah, I think it's always a matter of a narrative,
right,
and consistency, I would say. Narrative means that there is always a story behind a nice picture, a landscape, or what we call a context. And if we take Italy and we run like a SWOT analysis, weaknesses and strengths, as well as we can do the same work and job for other countries. But if you take Italy specifically, then you see that weaknesses are much less than strengths. The problem is that we are very consistent in saying only the weaknesses, and we are not so consistent when we have to tell about the strengths. There is always one number that is quite tricky, but it's astonishing in a positive way. Italian companies, small, medium enterprise in particular, are worldwide leaders in 255 product sectors. And we have said many times, Italy is the second manufacturing country in Europe. We have probably insisted a lot in saying that out of 14 sectors, Italy has 3 sectors where it's leading, and other 5 where comes second. So if you take this, then you understand easily that there is a lot of solid and material reasons to believe in Italy. So on one hand, we need to be more consistent in focusing on these trends, right. But the narrative is important because we have to tell this narrative in the right way. So business
to the right audience.
To the right audience, where the other stakeholders like the political system or many other stakeholders are not able or not capable enough to get to a point in a systematical way. I think business partners, companies, large companies like our companies, can be very effective in doing so.
You're correct. And it even struck me that you could name a person and run an ad in the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, it was making your case, and say to contact, or we offer incentives, call this person at this phone number and,
exactly.
and email. Maximo, targeting this message to a very small, very influential audience. Is the media even needed, I'm wondering? Is it all done on personal contact?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, the media is absolutely important. Let me put it this way. Again, the narrative then has to be displayed on different contexts. So we have to play about media for sure.
Right.
And if Italy, as we said before, I think that there was a comment in the previous panel today that has a strong mind share, which means that has a super strong brand. Right. Which means that at the same time, when people hear about Italy, people smile in a positive way. So people don't laugh, people Correct. Smile. The problem is that they want to get there, and in order to show Italy in the best way possible, we have to play with social medias.
Right.
You know, millennials are 80% of their time on social medias rather than on traditional medias. So we have to get there, but we need to speak that language. If we don't speak the language, or we believe that we can speak the traditional language in a world that is moving into social media language, then we can really get lost in translation. This is exactly what we have to avoid.
Right.
It's a combination of messages, all consistent to each other, with the right design in terms of the strengths that I already mentioned, deliver through the right and effective way, utilizing all the different languages that the world is requiring this moment.
Stefano, thoughts? Getting out this message, or any of you, what can be done or your company is willing to do to increase these investments?
I think another interesting message that Luigi De Vecchi gave us today is the feeling that Italy, for the first time, is showing collaboration and coordination in between public and private initiatives. If we compare Italy to, Germany and France, the German model or the French model is always proposing a very coherent, a very coordinated proposition to the world. And Italy had excellences over time, but often not really too coordinated among each other. And for the first time, we see this, and specifically when it comes to our business. I mentioned our willingness to export our unique capabilities of building transmissions line around the world. I could do this, simply hiring an origination team and sending them around the world, maybe opening offices and trying to do it, or as we decided to do it, we basically offer our availability to the major energy companies that are already operating around the world, and they might need specific investment in transmission that they don't know how to do because it's not their business, and then we step in. So this week, we're quite lucky, we're delivering in Chile one plant for Enel as part of an agreement we signed last year with Enel. So they built a power plant as their core business, but they needed to link the power plant to the main grid.
So you do a marketing very quietly.
And we propose ourselves, we build it, and this week my colleagues are down in Chile to actually do the official delivery. And I think this is a very positive sign, because there are going to be more opportunities for everybody if we act this way.
That's right. GE has gotten some press here in the U.S. for their new investments in Italy.
Yes.
U.S. media is starting to pick up on that, and that amounts to an endorsement that certainly can be leveraged. Camilo, what would make things happen faster from your point of view?
So first of all, I do believe that we are in a phase where things are happening faster compared to the past. So I think we see greater dynamism at the level of shareholders, public and private. We see greater professionalism in terms of a management teams who run companies. And thirdly, I think we see a greater predisposition towards taking risk. So I do feel that things are progressing. As far as Italian companies, I think that someone was saying before that small is beautiful. I think we do have a different view as far as we are concerned. We think big is beautiful. I do read every day the Sole 24 Ore. We have here the director, but I do read also every day the Financial Times. So if you look at the Financial Times on the page of key statistics for large corporations in Europe, you look at Germany, you have between 25 and 30 companies mentioned. You look at France, you have between 25 and 30 companies mentioned. You look at England, are close to 50. You look at the number of companies on which the FT every day reports the market cap, there are 6. 3 of them are banks. The other 3 are, you have Luxottica and Enel, and hopefully Terna will arrive soon if it's not there yet. But the fact is that I think that Italian companies have great skill sets and expertise, but I do think that they need to embrace globalization more and more. That does not only entail going into new countries and developing their business as they do very well, but also embracing the concept of building scale and becoming more present overseas. I was in San Francisco for our healthcare conference in January. There are some people who were at the conference who are here today. I was like blown away by the success and the potential that Italian healthcare companies have. All of them are private, actually, with the exception of one. So I do believe that to go to the next phase, healthcare, but also consumer, fashion, mechanics, do need to, frankly, take advantage of this situation, which is improving, and go abroad at an even greater pace than they've done today.
Because the market is there. And from a media point of view, Stefano, what suggestions would you make?
From a media point of view, I think that there are 3 key elements in order to convince a US company to invest in Italy and to permit to Italian company to face the internationalization process. Communication, storytelling, and Made in Italy promotion. I think that a company should use promotional initiatives focusing on our culture and on Made in Italy promotion in order to build an entrepreneurial image. In media sector, this means that we are able to produce entertainment content with an international vision. If we are able to produce entertainment content with an international vision, we can attract investment from US. If we are able to free ourselves from our popular comedy, we convince the US to invest in our media sector. And then, if it's true that I think in 2008 no one would have bet a penny on the fact that after 7 years of a recession, big recession, our export capacity would be strengthened. Now I think that it's the right time to convince a US company to invest in our country.
I want to ask an American investment advisor his insight on this. And this is somebody who I met, by the way, through an old friend of mine who works with NIAF, the National Italian American Foundation, Alyssa Rufino, who is right over there, who I've known for years. And she is one of the most longest-serving, popular, well-connected, well-respected press agents in Washington, D.C., and has always spoken. I've seen her at every opportunity about NIAF. And she has introduced me to Jeff Capaccio, who is an investment advisor in Silicon Valley with Carr Farrell. He advises fast-growing companies on their growth. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to ask you, Jeffrey, who's a board member of NIAF, for your suggestions and insights as to what can be done to get American companies to invest more in Italy.
Well, just one correction, I'm a legal advisor, not an investment advisor. But
Fine line. Okay.
in terms of providing legal advice, I think that what companies and funds and people that invest money want to see in the Silicon Valley is what's a quickness.
Want to come up to the microphone? I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, if we have a few minutes here before 12:30, okay, good. If someone else wants to speak, raise your hand.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay,
excellent.
In terms of advising companies, and I get involved frequently between U.S., Italy, Italy, U.S., and what particularly Americans want to see, I think, and people may disagree, but is predictability and rapidity. So they want to know that if they're investing money in Italy, that that whatever bureaucracy, red tape, however you want to call it, is minimized, that outcomes are predictable and timing is predictable, and then and rapidity, so that it could be done very quickly.
Right.
In terms of talent, Italy has got phenomenal talent. I've seen that now for 10, 15 years of doing work across the borders. The Italian engineer, Italian business people, computer scientists, I mean, they're excellent, excellent, excellent quality. We've helped land some of these folks, like at some of the premier laboratories, Lawrence Berkeley, Lawrence Livermore, and people have always come away extremely impressed. Italians have done extremely well in the Silicon Valley. But in terms looking towards Italy, it's a great country, agreeable climate, highly educated people, great lifestyle, very intelligent business people. We've just got to make it easier, I think, and more predictable for American companies to do abroad there.
That's a great marketing slogan. You just said what could be the headline on the marketing to the business community, as opposed to the ads about the culture which go to the mass audience. Predictability and rapidity. That might be the kind of advertising headline that would catch a C-level executive's eye. That's a great phrase. Anybody else want to speak as to your suggestions as to what can be done to encourage investment in Italy? And we close with your advice, which you have given us. Is there anything else that you would like to leave this audience with to encourage investment?
I think
and
it's
raise the standard of living for everybody. That's the goal.
Yeah, what I was noticing and let me say understanding better is that this predictability and rapidity in any case is improving. When I talk to my shareholders, they are very often surprised by the fact that things can happen. But again, I think that we have to look at what's below this increasing predictability and rapidity, and I think it's the human factor. It's absolutely true that Italy is quite a source for talented people. We should increase this awareness, but at the same time, probably we should increase the fact that we can attract even more talents than before. If we look at the demography is something that we have to point out carefully. So we are exporting talents, but we need to import more talents because Italian companies and in general, small, medium enterprise, they have to manage very soon the succession plan. So we need to also increase the skills and the know-how that the world will require. And we have this great opportunity because Italy is absolutely the right background for this. So universities are there. We need to create these poles for innovation, technology, driven systems, startups work that can be accelerated and incubated, of course. But talents are there. We are exporting. We need to create more attractiveness for new talents coming from other parts of the world in order to increase the competitiveness of Italian companies, which is there. But again, predictability is something that I've been noticing in the last 2 or 3 years is improving. Reforms, of course, have helped in this direction. More can be done. But again, it's something that we cannot and we don't have to underestimate. Italy in this moment is leading the change in Europe, and I think is probably this one of the positive headlines that we have to keep in mind.
Anybody else? It certainly seems as though to an outsider from the mass media like myself, you have an abundance of material to work with. And that the time is right based on what people have been saying about the way that things are going. And, you know, with the media, riding that timeline is important. We had in our U.S. news today that Home Depot sales are up 10% over last year. And it's not that home values are back to the high, but the trend line is riding. And it certainly just seems to me as though there's such a positive story to tell that people smile when they hear about. So, if not, we will close right on time at 12:30. Yes. Yes. Yes.
One thing that the director of Sole 24 Ore said, which is really true, Italians are their worst enemies. When the foreigner comes, they criticize the country more than any other people of any other country. In other words, you wash your dirty clothes at home. To be critical is it's important because that's how you improve, but not to others. Others believe it, okay? And they believe it, all the negative things that the image of Italy in the world is low only because Italians who are critical of themselves so much spread this much more than any. I went from Vienna to Rome 1 year 8 times, 3 times on Alitalia, 5 times on Air Austria. Air Austria was late 4 out of 5 times. If Alitalia had done that, it would be, but of course Austria says we are very efficient. Imagine if Germany, if Italy had done what Volkswagen has done. They are worried about the image because the image is important. And we should not say what is not true, but if we have things to correct, we should do it at home. And even though I've been here 50 years, so I'm not talking as an Italian in a sense. Italy is the only country in the world where you go and they tell you all the wrong things about Italy.
And some of our speakers referenced this.
And in fact, notice what I've said. Notice what Terna does. Terna was acquired, and it could do. It could become a global company. It's been acquired and told, don't do it because we do it. Our other subsidiaries do it. That's why globalization has to be a two-way street. So that's exactly what you said is what I was indicating earlier. But
and the Irish are right behind you on this trade. And I couldn't say what you just said. You have the last word, Doctor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Well, I think we conclude this 4th summit. There are a couple of good news. The first one, it is finished. The second news, which I think is very important, from this year on, we're going to have a twin summit like this in Italy, together with our strategic partner EY and Donato. And that means the next time around, Donato will be the presentatore and not me doing all this back and forth, which I'm not trained for. And it's going to be in Florence. So we'll be communicating, will be late October, as we decided. So stay tuned with us, with social and the media, and I hope we'll see you all shortly in Florence. Thank you very much.
Doctor, my eyes have seen the years.